Today, we talk with Dr. Timothy Quinn of Quinn Healthcare about what many healthcare leaders call the silent killer, hypertension. Take a listen. Well, thank you, Dr. Quinn, for joining us today to talk about hypertension. That is one thing that Mississippi suffers from. In fact, over 700,000 Mississippians are faced with hypertension. Let's talk about that this morning.
Yes, sir. I mean, this is something that we really need to talk about. Hypertension is called the silent killer, and it's called that for a reason, because a lot of people that have high blood pressure or hypertension, they don't know, because in a lot of cases, we don't have any symptoms until it's too late. Meaning that you can have an elevated blood pressure and feel great and everything is great, but then you can suffer a heart attack or a stroke, which are some of the consequences of untreated hypertension. So this is a very important topic.
Now, when dealing with hypertension, how do you know if you're faced with this? What are some of the symptoms? Obviously, we know that there are a lot of symptoms, obviously, but what are the main symptoms that you can see if you're sitting at home?
Well, for those that do have symptoms, as I said, we cannot wait for symptoms, because in a lot of cases, if you're starting to get symptoms, in a lot of cases, that individual's blood pressure could have been severely elevated for an extended period of time. And now this person is at an even higher risk of having a heart attack or a stroke. But some of these symptoms that a person can experience would be headache, fatigue. They can have a little bit of dizziness. These are some possible symptoms. But as I said, you cannot wait for symptoms. It's advised for everyone to go and get a physical exam at least once a year at the minimum. And during that encounter, the medical provider will check your blood pressure. And if it is elevated, then that will be addressed. And if it's determined that you need blood pressure medicine, it will be prescribed, and it could be the difference between life and death.
Now, Dr. Quinn, there are some people who may not know what hypertension is. Let's define what that is so people will have a clear understanding of what hypertension is.
Most definitely. And I have a resource here, the Mayo Clinic, that my beautiful wife, researcher, brought up, produced for me today. And normal blood pressure is when you have a systolic over a diastolic of 120/80 or less. If it's a little bit higher than that, it could be considered elevated blood pressure. But if it gets all the way up to 140/90 or higher, then you're considered to have hypertension. And that's when, in most cases, medical providers such as myself, we will intervene. For some, if it's barely elevated, we can do a trial of positive lifestyle changes such as diet and exercise. And in a lot of cases, it can be brought down. Also note, stress can also cause your blood pressure to be elevated. So this is something you want to watch as well. But the take home is, if you have high blood pressure and it's determined that you need medication, take the medication and follow the directions of your healthcare provider. Because as I said, untreated hypertension can result in a heart attack or a stroke, and overall, you can lose your life. So this is a very important topic.
Dr. Quinn, here's a famous question. I don't take medicine. What can I do? There are a certain demographic of people who do not believe in taking medicine. What are some things that they possibly can do to help curb this?
Well, for some, diet and exercise can work for some, but it has to be coordinated with your medical provider. But then there are those out there that have hypertension. And note, hypertension is multifactorial, meaning multiple factors contribute to your hypertension and how bad it is. Diet and exercise are definitely contributors, but also you have to look at the genetic predisposition or the genetic component. If you have a high genetic predisposition for hypertension, meaning maybe your mother had it and your father had it, then there's a high probability that you'll have it so bad or so much that you'll need diet, exercise, and you'll need medication. So for some out there, they need medicine, but that's a discussion that they should have with their medical providers so that the medical provider can better explain it so they can understand. But at the end of the day, you want your high blood pressure treated. because, as I said, the side effect of untreated hypertension can be a heart attack or a stroke and or the loss of life. So if you don't do it for yourself, do it for those you love, such as your wife, your children, and all the people in your family and your friends. Because at the end of the day, we want everybody to stay alive as long as possible to be on this earth.
And flex their muscles, right?
That's right. And flex those muscles.
Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Quinn.
Hey, thank you for having me.